Are we nearing the end? How can we know? What's next, and what's the order of events as given by Yeshua? This is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. Let's talk about it. There's lots happening in the world right now, and many are starting to wonder just where we're at in regards to the timing of Yeshua's return. While many opinions abound, Matthew 24, along with Mark 13 and Luke 21, isn't something to be read exactly in sequential order. A lot of it overlaps. I hope and pray to show how and why in this teaching. I'll link our teachings that go into greater detail on some of these matters below. This sequence I'm giving here can be applied to every view we've presented in the past. Now, that being said, we currently believe the best fit is for things to begin around the Passover season. Yet, while we believe rather firmly the resurrection takes place at the time of Shavuot, Pentecost, things can begin at a time other than the Passover season and simply lead up to the time of the resurrection taking place at Shavuot just the same. That all being said, let's begin with how we currently see the sequence of events for the end times play out. And it all starts with deception. Matthew 24, verse 4. And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray." It needs to be understood that though this can be interpreted as these people are saying they are the Christ, it can equally mean they're saying Yeshua is the Christ, yet they are deceiving many. Remember, there's no quotes given in the Greek to imply they are saying it to mean them. Thus, Yeshua could equally be saying these people are saying that Yeshua is the Christ, yet they will deceive many still. How can we know the difference? If they aren't preaching the same gospel Yeshua himself preached, they can say he's the Christ all they want. But if they preach a different gospel than that which Yeshua himself preached, they will be the ones deceiving people, whether they know it or not. And for what it's worth, the gospel Yeshua preached wasn't him dying on the cross and rising from the dead on the third day. That's good news, don't get me wrong. Make no mistake about it. But that wasn't the gospel he was preaching during his ministry on earth. We'll link our teachings below on this topic. Next we see wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24, verse 6. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. Such things must happen. These wars set everything up for the end times, basically laying the groundwork for the political and economic landscape to fall in place when the right time comes. The next verse is where we see everything is in place and it all begins. In that verse, we see nation versus nation, kingdom versus kingdom, famines, and earthquakes. Found in the next verse, verse 7, for nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. First, please note this is not talking about war in general. He already covered that in the previous verse. He just told us wars must happen first. This is different. This is more specific. Please note, it's not nations versus nations, plural. No, it's nation versus nation, singular. Yeshua is saying two specific nations come against each other. What two nations? Quite possibly the two nations we see referenced in Genesis 25. Let's read it. Genesis 25, verse 23. Yahweh said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. The 2 nations of Jacob and Esau. Thus, the nation versus nation could most likely be discussing the time when Jerusalem starts getting surrounded by the nations of Esau. We'll come back to this in a moment. He then says, kingdom against kingdom. Again, he already discussed the wars and rumors of wars. This is different. And again, they're singular. So what two kingdoms is he talking about here? I sincerely believe it's the kingdom of darkness versus the kingdom of light. The kingdom of Yeshua versus the kingdom of the Antichrist. Thus, this is the time believers everywhere will be facing intense persecution around the world. This begins either at the time of Jerusalem getting surrounded by way of the nation versus nation, or not long thereafter. He then says, there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. I believe with all my heart, Yeshua is giving us the time frame of the first 5 seals in this verse, leading up to the great earthquake of the 6th seal that takes place over all the world. That earthquake happens at the exact same time of the resurrection and destruction of Babylon. The time of these seals will be a time of intense persecution on believers around the world. And it's all initiated with Jerusalem getting surrounded. Something I personally believe is triggered by the Ark of the Covenant coming out, which leads to the sacrificial system being reinstituted under the modern state of Israel. In fact, it's the next verse where Yeshua said these are the beginning of the birth pains. Verse 8 says, all these are but the beginning of the birth pains. As I've noted in other teachings, the prophet Isaiah implies the birth happens before the birth pains. Yet, the latter part of this verse can imply the birth comes immediately with the birth pains, meaning the birth pains will not last long. Isaiah implies the birth pains come almost immediately before the birth. The birth itself is the resurrection. If my current view is correct, and the resurrection does indeed take place on the last day of the counting to Shavuot, Pentecost, then the days of the birth pains will last only up to 50 days leading to Shavuot, the day of the 6th seal. Shavuot will be the wedding of the Lamb and the marriage supper of the Lamb. Just as we saw the marriage covenant and covenant meal in Exodus 24 on Shavuot, we see the new covenant established on this very same day. Isaiah 46:10 says, he makes known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. So it only makes sense for it to fall in the exact same pattern as before. This verse is huge, and I believe it's a verse the church overlooks. After the resurrection at Shavuot, the tribulation under the Antichrist immediately begins. In fact, this is why the Antichrist begins to reign with full authority. It's because Babylon is taken out of the way, as seen in Revelation 17, verses 16 through 18. It's in these verses right here where we see the beast begins to rule. It happens after they take Babylon out of the way. The beast system will be in place, but the beast will destroy Babylon so it will have total control. Now, let's go to our next verse in Matthew 24, verses 9 through 11. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. Many read the first word, then, and take it to mean that it's the next thing to happen in the sequential order. They assume it means something happening next, something happening after what we just read from the previous verses. However, it means then, by way of being at the same time of what we just read, meaning then, at that time, they will deliver you up. So the time believers are delivered up is at the same time of the nation versus nation and kingdom versus kingdom. This is actually understood in verse 10. Verse 10 says, and then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. So, does this take place after they deliver you up or while verse 9 is happening. It takes place while verse 9 is happening. It's happening then with verse 9. Likewise, everything in verses 9 through 11 is taking place during that which is given in the previous verses, just the same. Meaning, this all takes place during the 50 days. Everything in verses 9 through 11 starts with the nation versus nation and kingdom versus kingdom, and concludes with the resurrection at Shavuot. But remember, the first resurrection isn't for all, quote, believers. This resurrection is only for those who made themselves ready. Those who aren't in the first resurrection will find themselves in the tribulation, where the Antichrist will be ruling. This is seen in Revelation 12 and 13. Revelation 12:17 says, "Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who obey God's commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus." And how does he do this? It's seen in the next verse. Revelation 13:1. "And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. He had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on his horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power, and his throne, and great authority. Now that Babylon is taken out of the way, the beast will rise to his full power. Let it be known, I believe the beast will already be on the scene before Babylon is destroyed, but he will rise to his full position once Babylon is taken out of the way. And those not taken in the resurrection will be left to undergo their time of purification, as noted in Daniel 11:35. "Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless, until the time of the end, for it will still come at the appointed time." And Daniel 12:10. "Many will be purified, made spotless, and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand." Now, back to Yeshua's description in Matthew 24, verse 12. "And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved." Lawlessness. Yeshua said nothing would disappear from the law until heaven and earth pass. And yet today, so many in the church live their lives as if the law doesn't apply to them. Thus, lawlessness has increased. But we must remain faithful to the end. And then we go to verse 14. It says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." I've been pondering this verse for a while now, and it just hit me this week to its meaning. The gospel of the kingdom, the gospel that Yeshua himself preached, is proclaimed throughout the world by way of the martyrs who will be placed on trial in the synagogues and courts according to Luke's rendition of this account. This is how the gospel, the Torah, is proclaimed throughout the earth. Let's quickly look at Luke's account for this. Luke 21, verse 11. "There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events of great signs from heaven. But before all this," now notice here, he says it's before the earthquakes, the famines, the pestilences, fearful events, and great signs from heaven. Well, what comes before these? The nation versus nation, and the kingdom versus kingdom. That's when it all begins. Continuing in Luke's account, "They will lay hands on you and persecute you. They will deliver you to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name. This will result in your being witnesses to them. But make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourselves. For I will give you the words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. So the gospel Yeshua preached will be declared through his servants when they're delivered over to the synagogues and courts of the world. And don't you find it interesting that Yeshua said his servants in the end times will be handed over to synagogues? There's a reason for this. Please see our teaching titled, Beware of the Noahide Laws. The Antichrist will not permit anyone who believes in Yeshua to pursue obedience to the commands of God, the Torah. And then Yeshua goes back to the start in the next verse of Matthew's account. Verse 15, it reads, So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. The Greek actually says, when therefore seeing, meaning he's taking us back to the start of it all, showing the very reason why we will see nation against nation. It's the abomination of desolation. That will be the start of the 50 days. We strongly encourage you to watch our teaching titled, The Abomination of Desolation, linked below. Let's jump to verse 20. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. As we've noted before, there are many ways this verse can be taken. However, I believe it's important to note that the word for winter here is also translated as bad weather, as seen here in Acts 27, verse 20. It reads, When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. So, this doesn't necessitate things to begin in the winter. He's telling us to pray for good weather at the time we flee. Have you ever tried running out to your car in a storm? Now, with that in mind, imagine fleeing for your life from the Antichrist system in a storm. So Yeshua's words here can easily be talking about praying our time of fleeing will not be in bad weather. Now, jumping to verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. This will be the resurrection at the sixth seal. So much is happening here, and many will look at this as an alien invasion. The movies has prepped the world to believe such a thing. This is when I believe the world will do all they can to distract with their deception. It's also very possible this is when we see the abyss opened from Revelation chapter 9. But make no mistake about it, regardless of what the enemy does at this time to deceive, this is when Yeshua takes his bride. He'll be with her for 1 full year, as described in the Torah. Deuteronomy 24:5. If a man has recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year, he is to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he has married. This just so happens to be exactly what happened with the children of Israel. After the covenant at Mount Sinai, he waited a full year before sending out the spies to go off to war. We see they celebrated the first Passover after Egypt in the first chapters of the book of Numbers. Not long after that, we see the spies are sent out. I also believe this day of Shavuot will be the start of the 70 weeks of Daniel, as noted in the teaching on this topic. The 70th week will be the week of Sukkot. This will place the Battle of Armageddon on either the Day of Trumpets or the Day of Atonement. After this, we have the second Exodus, again described in detail in our teaching on the subject. This will be the survivors of those who had to go through the tribulation, coming back to the land as foretold here in Isaiah 66. And then we have the millennial reign of Yeshua. Now, for what it's worth, I sincerely believe the millennium actually begins at the time of the first resurrection, the time when Yeshua comes to be with his bride. And actually, it will begin at the start of the Hebrew year of his return. After that, we have the second resurrection and judgment, as noted here in 1 Corinthians 15 and also in Revelation 20. Then we have eternity, the eighth day, the day when the Son is circumcised. Those who are the sons of Yahweh will have their hearts circumcised for all eternity. While I know there are many opinions out there on this topic, my biggest concern is hoping everyone will see that there is coming a time of intense persecution for all believers during the first 5 seals. The resurrection will not save you from that. The only way one will be able to escape that time of persecution is if they are found to be in the Church of Philadelphia. They are the only ones promised to escape that time. The resurrection doesn't happen until after those first 5 seals are complete. Please, don't seek to argue your current view. Focus on reasoning together. Even if you walk away seeing things differently, that's okay. We're all seeking truth. Let's not forget that. This isn't a time to point fingers and say, "You're wrong," or "How can you believe that?" or "Can't you see?" This is a time when we will need one another more than ever. And if by chance you get something right in your current view regarding how it all plays out, it's not a time to say, "I told you so." Please remember, we're all in this together. That can't be underscored enough. Yet all too often I see people just arguing, and it's time for that to stop. Obviously someone's right, and someone's wrong. In fact, we're probably all wrong more than we want to think. Okay. Either way, when things begin, and I believe it could be very soon. I know that can be relative, I get it. But it's time to come together, okay? You're going to have differences. You're going to have differences. In fact, I think that's the test of our love for one another. In fact, I think that's the test that shows if you're in the Church of Philadelphia or not, okay? Because if you can't love your neighbor who differs with you, well then that's proof right there you're not in the Church of Philadelphia. Philadelphia actually means Church of Brotherly Love. Okay, you don't have to agree. It doesn't say Church of Brotherly Agreement. It says Church of Brotherly Love, meaning you love each other despite your disagreements. So it's time to find out what church you're in. And as I've said multiple times over, through all these teachings I've done on end times, I think when the end times kick in gear, when that one mark, this is it. All believers, regardless of your view, background, whatever, we will all fall into one of the 7 churches of Revelation. Okay. Make it your goal to be in the Church of Philadelphia, and let it be known that will only happen if you love your neighbor, despite your differences. Can you do it? If you can't, you better start working on it now. Because, like I said, I think we're getting much closer than we think. And it's time. It's time to move forward in Him. Set aside the petty, stinking differences and work together. And yes, you don't have to agree. But doggone it, when things start and you say, "Oh, hey, check this out, I'm wrong, that person was right," don't walk in pride. Say, "Okay, I was wrong," and move forward and try to learn and grow there. I'm just rambling now. Well, that's all I have. Think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, shalom.